I would like to ask you, as someone who stepped in, as someone who represents a company who stepped into the media business fairly recently, at this point, I would like to ask you how you perceive the challenges of the media business.
I think everything was largely said by other speakers, that the media are experiencing really fundamental change in how they operate, meaning that like in Europe itself, and the same refers to Slovak experience or Czech experience, the media lost like more than 20% of their revenues in advertising and in circulation. I think in Slovakia it was even worse. So this is creating a totally new situation for the journalists, for the newsrooms, and also for the publishing houses to operate. And I think from our observations, being slightly 1 year in this business, we can say two things. One is good and another one is bad. The good thing is that we believe that the local media, the local news provided in local languages will remain unchallenged, and the media will have a lot of room to operate, and it is very visible that they are not losing, for example, the visitors on their websites, they are not losing readership that much as they are losing money from their businesses. And the second observation, the bad news, is that I simply don't believe that in our countries the really mainstream media will be functioning on paywalls. I don't believe in that. I think that there will be a lot of competition all the time who will be able to provide news for free, not speaking about long investigative reports or quality articles, but when speaking about really the daily news business, I think it will be very hard for the mainstream media to establish paywalls, and the social media, the Facebooks, Facebook is a real evidence that people can get their news from different sources, and the media have completely lost the ability to control the distribution of what they are producing. I think this is the change of paradigm. This is connected with online business. However, people will demand, or people will be demanding to get the local news from local media, from local people, local journalists who are very much involved on what is going on in local markets. And Facebook and Google is not able to replace that, because they will never invest in hiring local journalists and transform themselves from social platforms or search wires to traditional media houses. So I think there is a room for optimism. However, the main question remains how to monetize what media are producing. This is something that the clear answer is missing. And there are some global media who are able to find this answer and are operating quite properly, but their experience is not relevant for local markets like Slovakia, Czech Republic, and I would say that even Romania.
We are in a forum of students, so this is why I asked on the procedures of how you actually try to stay free from a possible influence from the owner, because this can be, of course, through the regular mechanisms, but this can also be indirect. And there was a lot of talk during this takeover about the self-censorship, about how, of course, and this doesn't distinguish SME from other media, because SME is not the only media that is owned by Penta, first of all, and also other media are owned by very diverse and people with the different reputations. But what I'm just, because we have the possibility to have you here, that's why I'm asking, how do you deal with that? I mean, it might not be easy for your journalists to come up with a story that they know is directly going to talk about maybe interests of one of the owners of SME, or if they do come, do you treat it differently? Now I really want to ask about the trade of journalism. These are students, they perhaps want to know if there is a difficult team, does it influence them? Do they better not talk about it, or is the story hidden somewhere on the page 14? Is it skipped, or do you perhaps...
There is no such thing, and it is exactly, there are two reasons, because our journalists, like, there are some really good journalists who have their integrity. So basically, the fact that Penta is a minority owner doesn't change anything on the fact that the stories go through like a fact-checking process. You look at the facts, and if you get to the point that if it is Penta, then it goes to the story just as it would go if it is someone else, and if it is someone who violates the rules or acts, immorally, or because that's the job you do, and fortunately, like, I haven't noticed in my newsroom like the instinct that okay, now it's Penta, let's discuss it very thoroughly whether we should write about it or not, and there wasn't a single time that the story in which Penta was mentioned wouldn't go out. People who are at SME want to prove that SME is an independent news media, and for them a lot of is at stake. They wouldn't risk their reputation by trying to twist the facts or keep back from publishing something. And if there is something, it's even more awareness of the need for integrity and be critical.
The ones who should judge whether the media are affected or not are either journalists and the audience, the readers. They either believe the media or not. So I think this is these are all of. Apart from this, it is just an academic discussion whether the media ownership is changing anything or has a serious impact on the content what media are producing. So we have been the owners of the media for more than 1 year, and everybody can make up his or her mind how it works or how it is not working. So this is just something that I wanted to add.
I would like to make a comment, because as I said it before, like with SME, it's the fact that SME works independently can Penta claim no credit for, because really the situation is that even if Penta wanted to, they just cannot influence. The only person who can influence me is Alexei Fulmek, the CEO of the company, because the setup. So that's one point. And also arguing with the fact that, okay, we are not influencing the media, shows a little bit of the fact that there might be a little misunderstanding about media ownership, because that's natural. You don't influence media, so it's not a virtue that if you own media, the fact that you don't influence that's not a virtue. That's how it should be, I would say.
Should be, I think it's a good word. So do you claim that you were under no influence from any of the owners or anyone in your editor's room?
No.
Okay, thank you. We talk about the direct and indirect influence, of course, but now let's get to Lukáš. So this is the beauty of it, that Lukáš was one of Mr. Fila was one of the people who actually left from SME because they thought that they cannot produce free, independent, correct me if I'm wrong, media. So there were about 40 or more than 40 of you who left SME at that time. Now my question is, as Beáta mentioned, you had Alexei Fulmek for many years in Slovakia. This is the decisive man who created this safe, independent environment in SME, and who was fighting for this freedom and for the independence, and who was doing all the possible to maintain the freedom for you guys. Was it, now when you look back at it, you started a new daily, it's Daily N, it of course has economic effects, because now you don't have one sort of like a mainstream media, but you have two, so you have to sort of share perhaps the pie. But looking back at it, why was it not safer to stay with the publisher who you knew was truly dedicated to the independence of media, and what was the reason that you really left?
Well, I really tried to convince him to leave with us, you know. I mean, that's not to make this clear. I mean, it was not, in no way was this a personal conflict at all, and I never did, and I have never since questioned Alexei's motive or role in all of this. So, you know, I could ask, if we wanted to put it on a personal level, I could ask you, on the contrary, why was it that he did not make that decision as we did? So I think at some point we evaluated the situation differently, so that relationship was very long and in many cases and very strong, but at some point we came to different conclusions, although I think ultimately we share the same values, even now. But to answer your question fully, I think we have to get back to the reasons why we left, and even maybe compare them to what was just said. Because the first reason we left is that we questioned Penta's motives for investing in the media. Now, if I could just translate the first half of what Mr. Danko was saying, it was basically that we have no idea how to make money from the media, because we don't believe that people are ready to pay for content and the advertisement is not there. So, Beata, don't worry, this is not about Excel, because the Excel just is silent. So obviously I think the business case for the huge investments Penta made were unclear, and as you mentioned, one of the co-owners of Penta over the last year since we left openly said that one of the motives they had for investment was to have a nuclear briefcase, meaning just to scare competition off and just to wield influence within.
Interpretation.
It could be, and I'm sure we can discuss that at length, but still, the comment was made, and it cannot be undone. At the same time, you mentioned synergies as the response. Now, I can't help it, but Penta has always been in deep conflict of interest. It's a company that does business in many state-regulated and funded areas: healthcare, energy, arms trading, and so on and so on. So its interests are very complex within the society. So, and here you are, I mean, I don't make this personal, but you are at the same time the head of the PR department of the company, and whose role it is to cover up all the mess that can possibly erupt. And at the same time, you're responsible for running the media business, whose role it is to, one of the people involved in it, whose role it should be to uncover all the misdoings. So I think that just somehow symbolically represents the schizophrenic position of the whole company. I mean, on the one side, we are in the business whose purpose it is to uncover the truth, and on the other side, we have so many interests, and I don't mean this only badly. I mean, it's naturally for a player of your size. Of course, you deal with politicians, you deal with the state. Naturally, there are many situations in which you're not interested in the truth being uncovered. So I laughed like crazy when I heard the possibility of you starting an investigative team, because, I mean, if you just opened your own drawer, that would be like the work of 100 investigative journalists over the span of 5 years. I mean, just the things you could uncover right there. So I don't see how a company which at the same time is so deeply involved with the state and with politicians can run an honest media business. So, and that's something that continues. Even now, our company, over the 9 months or 10 that we exist, there were 4 lawsuits filed against us, all of them by Penta, all of them, and for ridiculous reasons. I mean, 2 of the stories we were sued for had to do with us just writing that they sued someone else for something, and so let's just summarize. We wrote about the background of your co-owner in the health insurance company. That's a publicly funded entity. All of that has to do with public money. We wrote about your possible involvement in arms deals. Again, something that has to do with the state. That just shows that your mentality is to just bury the truth if possible, or make it difficult to access, and nothing has changed over that year. I mean, you being in a new position of a media owner has in no way changed this approach, and you are creating unprecedented situations, because previously even the media with unknown or strange owners there was never a tradition of one media or one publisher or one owner of a medium suing the other and so on. So I think the overall, our impression of Penta not having the right motives, being in a massive conflict of interest and coming from a background of a completely different company culture has been confirmed and is being confirmed on a regular basis.
You said if Mr. Danko or Penta would open the drawer, they would find a lot of material. Sure,
Yes.
we know because there was some investigation or some accusations made before, but how about your owner? I mean, are you sure that if a drawer of your owner would be opened, that there would be nothing that interesting? Okay, we have indications, we've heard, but are you so sure? I mean, what's the difference? You still have a capital which is backing you, and which is from a business, which is from a private business, from a very successful private business?
Okay, I can tell you the difference right now, and I can even clarify the somewhat abstract discussion about the independence of a specific journalist. I mean, again, everyone has to make his or her own decision, and I can't really say what other people's were and are thinking. I can just tell you for myself. For me, it comes down to, is this a person I would like to work for, or am I confident in working for this person? Now, for sure, something may come up in the future, and I will find out that, okay, the investors that we have also have some sort of a problem in their background, and I will say, oh, okay, I no longer want to work for this person. But at the point when this decision was being made, there was nothing that, to my knowledge, was problematic. There was no one else who knew the background of our investors who brought anything up to my attention. Whereas with Penta, when I had to imagine that, okay, I will be waking up each morning and creating value for Penta, and this is not, my attitude towards Penta is not militant in that I would hate them or would refuse to talk to them. But still, that doesn't mean that it's someone you want to be working for. I mean, if you understand the difference, I mean, there are people who you like and say hi to on the street, or don't like but say hi on the street, but you don't want to be living in the same apartment.
Basically, you needed to extend your trust towards the new owner, and that wasn't possible, despite the fact that you had a very strong publisher who was guaranteeing with his reputation and his life story, which is very well known in Slovakia, that he will do all that he can to guarantee you the freedom. Thank you. Would you like to comment, or can we go through, please, Mr. Danko?
I think I should comment very briefly. What we heard are just, let's say, emotions and personal observations of Mr. Fila. It's hard for me to say that the facts that were mentioning in connection with Penta are completely true, and I have nothing to say about it. So, first of all, I think it's absolutely unimaginable in this current environment in Slovakia or in the Czech Republic that anybody, any financial group, any single media owner is able to control the flow of the information or to shape significantly the public opinion. A year ago, we had a very big discussion in Slovakia. What does it mean if Penta enters the media business? How the independence of the press will be deteriorated, and how it affects the integrity or the conditions for journalists to operate. And we are not the ones who should judge it, because we can have 4 different opinions on that. But there are readers, there are people who are buying newspaper every day, who are visiting the websites. And I have to say that as a consequence of Penta's entry to the media business, we haven't noticed any significant or even, let's say, any decrease in readership or any decrease in the websites of the media that we are having under our control. So the readers, I would say, are not largely sharing an opinion of Mr. Fila and his colleagues, and he's absolutely free to, and his colleagues, they were absolutely free to make their decision, and they decided to leave because they are not able to work in a company that is partially owned or controlled by Penta. And this is about also the freedom of choice. And they can show in this competitive environment how they are able to operate, whether they will be able to run their business completely independent from from some big capital. And we will see. I mean, it's all academic discussion without having certain results.
Thank you. Yes, surely Mr. Fila was sharing with us his concerns, and also we are talking to students here again, so he was talking about his motivations as a journalist who worked for a paper where owners were changing at the moment, which is, I think, very valuable comment. Now, there were some facts, I believe, as well mentioned in what he said. For example, the number of lawsuits against SME, against Daily N, which he represents. And if I'm correct, this is the number 4, and
yes.
It's in the last 9 months or something like that?
Well, actually, all of them are like in the last 2 months.
Thank you, last 2 months. Are you in any lawsuits with Penta? Just a brief question, SME. In the last nine months?
No, not in the last 9 months, but I've already made comments about the lawsuits. I think that it's very unfortunate if an owner of media is resorting to lawsuits because they are power tool, and I really think that they have a very negative effect on the media environment, and I really think that like any financial group or any owner of media should really change the approach how they get their voice through, because there are multiple ways for a company of the size of Penta and of its PR activities to actually respond to stories and get things straight, and lawsuits are not the most fortunate.
Thank you for this comment, and also, surely. Thank you for the comment, and we may also take into consideration that, and this would be for a totally different debate, judiciary and the way the courts actually work, and some of its rulings are found very contradictory, and actually in themselves, some of them are harming the independence of media. So this is just for, I don't want to get into that because that would be for a different story. Please.
Yeah, I think it's not a time to comment in details like what these lawsuits are about, but I would just reject an opinion that we just did lawsuits and nothing else. There were many attempts to contact Denník N in normal way to provide arguments and to use the tools that are provided by the Slovak law, the press law. When you feel that you weren't treated properly, you have a possibility to apply for
Can I just shortly comment
for answer.
Shortly?
Shortly,
just one sentence.
But really to discuss this issue in front of this audience, which is not in details informed.
This point is first sort of reaction from the audience.
I think Mr. Fila actually didn't say that. Mrs. Balogová, she didn't say that it's the only thing, or you didn't try to contact the Daily N. I think her comment was more general in a sense of perhaps the lawsuit should be the last resort of an owner of media. It doesn't imply that you didn't comment, didn't contact the Daily N.
It was last resort, sorry, and I just cannot understand this argument that if you are in a position of being an owner of the media, you shouldn't file a lawsuit against another media. I don't understand this. It is completely missing my understanding. So
thank you. Lukáš, do you want to have your
just
sentence?
Really a factual. First of all, we responded officially to all your communication regarding these instances. Following all your letters, I myself called up your law office to go talk to them about what this is about. I attended that meeting. I would not be bringing this up, but you are twisting the facts, you know. And I was promised.
How I'm twisting the facts?
No, you said that we were not responding and not communicating.
No, I said that you rejected completely everything.
I reached out, and the agreement on that meeting was that before filing the official lawsuits, there would be one more meeting to resolve the issue, and there was nothing of the sort.
Thank you very much. I said it's going to be interesting. Thank you very much. If I may now move to Romania. Does it sound any familiar?
I think we should stay in Slovakia. This
No,
is
no, no,
fun.
no. No, but it's going to be more fun, and I promise, because I know I'm saying this. Does it sound any familiar? And you can really be very brief with responding to this, because then I want to get into the future of journalism.
It sounded very familiar and not, and I don't know how our friends from Hungary feel, but what's happening here is unbelievable. This does not happen in Romania, and I'm sure this does not happen in Hungary. To have people at a table being able to discuss this issue, you guys are extremely lucky. I wish we could fight over independence and competition. So I'm an editor that tries to help people to write better, so I'm always looking for the silver lining. So this is really great that, you know, and I think there's great journalism to be done, and who has the facts, who's twisting the facts. That's the fun part of this job. So I just want to point out, I think sort of having competition, from what I understand, one big independent newspaper becomes two competing media companies. I would move here. And I think for all of you students, there's an important lesson in this, especially as you talk about journalism is a business of perception and decisions. And all of you are making decisions and building perceptions about who's right at this table and who's wrong and who's evil and who's good. And this is going to be a pain in the ass for you throughout your entire careers. And it's going to be a constant confrontation with values. And I think Lukáš said it best. Oftentimes, it comes down to the personal decisions that each of us make to stay in one place, whether something wrong has happened or not, to go to one place, whether we're sure that something good is going to happen or not. So I know that was not a brief answer, but I think the fact that this can be discussed openly is wonderful. In my country, this doesn't really happen. If one conglomerate, one business, one rich billionaire buys a media company and some employees don't comply, that's fine. They don't go up and find capital to start a new one. So it's usually the end of the story.
When we're talking about media ownership, not just in Slovakia, but generally, how does it work? How should it be? And as it was mentioned several times, that a journalist's task is to tell the truth. And how does it work? How do we present the element of transparency, not just in the content, but also in your relationship between the owners? How do you perceive that?
Would you like to comment?
I wouldn't know. Maybe Mr. Danko would be a better respondent. But you own your companies through a series of offshore companies and so on. So maybe.
I think this wasn't a fair comment at all. But when speaking about the ownership of the media, I think it is very important that the media or the readers are fully aware who is owning the particular media house and whose interests might be questioned. Yeah. Which wasn't the case in Slovakia, and there are some owners or there are some media houses that are having owners which are not being disclosed openly.
So why weren't you buying SME directly?
But we are showing that our
interests
are at stake, and
why weren't you buying them directly?
I think Mr. Fila is now referring to a specific time in which the transfer was made through a different company, and I think we can sort of go and ask, because this would go into a lot of detail, but we can try and explain the entire the process of how, first of all, it seemed that a different company was buying SME, and it turned out later